Warning, Star Trek from the Holodeck contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue to listen.
Lock and load!
Fire!
Holodeck 3 program is reinstated.
Open sesame!
Commander Klingon vessel. We are energizing transporter beam. Now.
One, engage!
Hello, welcome everyone to Star Trek from the Holodeck. This is the Strange New Worlds edition. We are back, David. Hello, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
I am happy to be back. I cannot believe it's been 2 years since the season 2 finale of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, it's insane that we've had to wait this long, but hey, you know, it's because of that strike, I guess.
Yeah. What's that saying, Dave? Good things come to those who wait.
Yes.
Right? Well, oh, wait, that's going to be a spoiler. I was going to say, well, that's not the case for Spock.
Aww.
But we're not going to be talking about that episode, but it isn't any secret that this season 3 premiere consisted of 2 episodes that were disconnected. So they gave us the continuation, or the season premiere was the conclusion to the Hegemony storyline that started. That was actually the season finale for season 2. And then we have a secondary episode that's a little more fun, has a lot of levity there, but we are going to be breaking them up for the purposes of this discussion. It's easier to handle, at least for us, to break them up. So in this particular episode, David, you and I are going to be talking about Hegemony Part 2, and then on a separate episode, we will talk about the second episode of the season. So season 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds opens with Hegemony Part 2. The episode immediately signals its ambition with something I would call like a formal filmic dynamism and narrative scale. So while the stakes are high and the visuals are compelling, the execution seems more conclusionary rather than expansive. And what I mean by that is it feels like the end for the Gorn. Does it not?
It does. Because like the way that they figure out the Gorn problem, it kind of delays the Gorn.
Yeah, because they discovered that stellar events can both trigger and send them into hibernation, making them obviously more docile. It seems like we put that Gorn threat to rest, at least until the Gorn makes an appearance briefly in the original series.
Yeah.
Which is fine because we don't really see or hear about the Gorn ever, really.
Well, that's the thing I liked about Hegemony Part 2 was the fact that it wasn't about the Gorn themselves as a continuing threat. It's actually the aftermath, like the aftershocks of like, what did the Gorn do to the crew of the Enterprise?
Yeah.
And how does it affect everybody? And I would go with that just so that it basically doesn't muddy the waters, because you know how Star Trek fans get. If they continue on the Gorn route, then I know that fans are going to be clamoring, going, well, technically they should have showed up till like the original series and everything else. And it's like this way, taking the Gorn out, and also creatively, I thought it was really creative how they actually kind of shuffled the Gorn away, because the whole idea of basically them being put into hibernation actually makes science sense when you think about, like, the Gorn are technically a reptilian species, and if anyone out there knows about animal biology, same thing with crocodiles and alligators. And I thought it was really creative that they went that route.
Well, I like it for several reasons. Number one, I like it because, yes, just like you said, to echo your sentiment, it makes sure that we don't fall too far into canon inconsistencies, because you can argue that we just didn't have enough information yet. There are some people that are screaming foul ball, you're retconning canon. What did they really retcon? We don't really know a lot about them to begin with. So there are things that you can do. You can play around. And even though even the producers themselves are saying that they've retconned the Gorn, it's not a true retcon in the sense that they are blatantly ignoring obvious story aspects. It's more of a retcon of the aesthetics, the visuals, the way they look, the way they even act at times.
Oh, yeah.
But that, to me, all that does is smooth out inconsistencies. And Star Trek has done this for its 50 plus years that it's been on the air. Next Generation, the movies all smoothed out the Klingons and how they are presented and characterized. Deep Space Nine further fleshed out the Klingons and turned them into more of a Viking type species than what they originally were.
Yes.
Which is fine. I don't have problems with that. But my point is that this isn't new to Star Trek. I think where we get into dangerous waters is when we try to retcon real story aspects, narrative aspects that are incredibly relevant and have high stakes that resonate throughout the entire franchise. That's where we get into dangerous territory, like the episode that I absolutely loved last season with Lyanne and Kirk.
Yes.
Where they kind of recontextualize what we knew of Khan, and they even pushed it back and played around with some of those years of when it actually happened, when this whole Khan thing actually happened or started, initiated on Earth. Those types of things, yeah, that's dangerous. Fortunately, it worked out just fine for the Khan stuff ultimately. But with the Gorn thing, it seems to be more just aesthetic and fleshing out little things. As we've said before, we don't really know much about the Gorn. So if they want to fuck around a little bit and make a spaceship that's, turning the inside of a spacecraft into like a type of digestive chamber.
Well, dude, that's the thing about the Gorn that I like what they've done. Because just like what you said, with the changes aesthetically, it gave this species that we don't know really a lot about and gave them more teeth as a viable villain like alien species. Because there was like a couple of episodes where me and you have talked how Star Trek needs to get away from Klingons, Romulans, and Borg. Klingons, Romulans, and Borg. That just seems to be their staples when it comes to let's make a big gigantic villain for the season. Here we have the Gorn, and I'm sorry, Hegemony Part 2, some of the stuff they did, I was totally blown away with. The whole idea that basically their ship, it digests the I guess you could say the captives or the victims that they basically capture, and it doesn't just digest them quickly, it digests them slowly. And I'm like going, that just adds so much more of a threat to the Gorn, and it added that almost like that scare factor.
It nudges us a bit into the body horror arena, and body horror is always very uncomfortable for me. It's not my favorite horror, not because I'm not interested in it intellectually. I think you can do a lot of smart things with it. It actually bothers me. Like, that's a phobia of mine. Body horror truly bothers me to my core.
That particular scene where I think it's Ortegas, right?
Yeah.
Or Ortegas basically loses her arm.
Well, yeah, it looks like it's half just gone.
Just gone.
Dissolved, yeah.
That gave me the same chills as when we see the Borg for the first time and they open the drawer and they see the baby all covered in wires and everything. And it's really disturbing.
That's right.
I'm like going, that is what you needed to do if you wanted to actually bring in a viable other alien species that we as Star Trek fans go, yes, they're a threat. They're an absolute threat if they show up.
Yeah, that Ortega scene was very reminiscent of, I believe his name is Verhoeven, the guy that directed RoboCop.
Yes.
It has that kind of vibe, which is also body horror in a lot of ways. It is unsettling. It's uncomfortable. I think anyone, if you were to ask them, how does it make you feel knowing that someone can put you in a vat and you don't die immediately, but you're slowly being dissolved in digestive fluids and you're alive for the whole thing? You feel your hands dissolving away, your legs, your organs. That is truly horrific. So I love that aspect. But also, David, something that I'm incredibly thankful for is that Star Trek has never hinged on just true evilness. It's always hinged on, I don't want to say explanations, but explanations in a lot of ways. The idea of lack of communication, not fully understanding the threat. Now here, you could say the threat is evil if you want to attach value labels to the Gorn.
Yeah.
But the way they explained it, it's not necessarily that they're evil. It's more like they're just a product of nature. They're activated by cosmic stellar events.
Yes.
They are then lulled into hibernation through cosmic stellar events. And when you do something like that, you move away from the simplistic evil alien trope that was even pushed forward in the original series when it comes to the Gorn. And if the Gorn's aggression is catalyzed by stellar events and then subdued through biologically driven hibernation, then the implications are far different. It's saying something very different. Now their violent behavior is not a moral failing or a cultural disposition, but a natural response to environmental triggers.
Yeah.
That to me is far more intellectually stimulating and interesting than just, I'm evil.
Exactly.
I'm bad.
Because the way I see it is like, it would be easy to basically turn the Gorn into the Borg, and they're just like this species that goes around and then I'm talking about the Borg, goes around and assimilates other species just willy-nilly. No thought, no motivation. It's just basically they go around like zombies. That's it. But with the Gorn, it feels more natural. Like, you don't go around saying a great white shark is evil, or a lion is evil, or a bear is evil when it attacks a human. It's not evil. That's what happens with nature.
Right. The only thing, because yet that is definitely what they're doing. That is without a doubt, especially if you go back to an interview that I believe it was Kurtzman that was talking about the Gorn, and he insinuated that they're basically the representative of the other, the unexplained. And when you put an idea like that into Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, and you slap the Gorn label over it, you start viewing them very differently. So if their aggression is cyclical, involuntary, and dictated by astronomical conditions, then humans or the Federation, they cannot negotiate, reason, or empathize in the ways they're accustomed to. That's the real challenge. The Gorn become a test, essentially, of Starfleet's capacity to deal with non-anthropomorphic intelligences.
Yeah.
And a kind of, I guess in the way of knowledge, a kind of epistemological limit to diplomacy and understanding. This is very similar to Species 10C.
Yes.
It's just, there is no ability to communicate is really the issue.
Yeah. And that's the really interesting part about like how Strange New Worlds has tackled the Gorn up to this point. While they've been seen as quote unquote this evil, there's always been this moment where it's kind of like it's frustrating for the like characters like Pike who can't communicate with them. Because we know that up to this point, Pike has been pictured as the person that his main strength is his ability to negotiate with opposing parties. He can't negotiate with the Gorn, and it's not because the Gorn don't want to listen. It's the fact that you can't communicate with the Gorn.
Yeah. We seem to, as humans, we always want to look at other creatures and beings like us. But the idea that you brought up the shark, like a great white shark, you can't transpose values on a shark. Good, bad, it's just nature.
It's just nature.
They don't really view things in that way. They're not moral agents necessarily. So by essentially doing the same thing with the Gorn, it just makes them a threat that is not wholly knowable, something that you can never truly communicate with or even understand. And that's what really makes the Gorn in Strange New Worlds the go-to alien. They've done it, David. We've been saying for how many years that we need new villains. We need new things that we can wrestle with, new threats. And we haven't had that real new, true, ongoing threat since the Changelings.
Yeah.
Since the Dominion War. And now here, even though the Gorn wasn't something that was initiated in Strange New Worlds, as we know, they're the first series to take the Gorn and really flesh them out and make them their own. They made this villain, this alien species, their own in Strange New Worlds. And this is what we've been advocating since 2017 with Discovery. Because one of our biggest problems with Discovery is that we were always wondering, where's the real threat? Like, you have these grand cosmic threats, but where's the tangible villain? Where's the Khan? Where's the Gul Dukat? The one that really speaks on behalf of the darker side of humanity.
Yes.
And we've never had those. Now we have Gorn, who's still not the Khan. It's still not that tangible villain, but they took the unexpected route. What if we make them cosmological? What if we make them not necessarily truly evil, but just so beyond what we can understand?
Yeah. It's basically what they did in the very beginnings with the Borg. Because like before the Borg ever like truly became
goal-oriented?
Yeah. Goal-oriented.
That they were just more of an indifferent cybernetic species that was intent on assimilating in order to better themselves.
Yes. And in the very beginning of TNG, that's the feel that they always had, was like
they weren't good, they weren't bad, they were morally indifferent.
They were morally indifferent, and you just knew you didn't want to run into them. Much kind of like my analogy that I put earlier. You don't want to run into a grizzly bear out in the middle of the woods. So you don't want to run into the Borg in the middle of deep space. Now we have the Gorn, and yeah, this actually puts them in that pedestal now of, to me, of like what the Borg had. Because like I can't, after I finished the episode, I'm like going, man, you could do really cool stories, like especially playing around with what Strange New Worlds has done for the past 2 seasons is playing around with the whole General Order 1 and Prime Directive, where they have sections of space that you do not go to because you will get punished. You are forbidden to go to this part of the universe.
Yeah.
Doing like more, you can actually do some really cool future stories now with the Gorn, where all of a sudden maybe a crew comes across a section of space that the Federation knows that the Gorn is there. You're supposed to stay away from there.
Yeah. They did put a pin in it. It felt a lot like, I forgot the name of the episode that was a part of Enterprise. I believe their 3rd or 4th season, where the Borg was introduced.
Where the Borg showed up, yeah.
And I believe at the very end of that episode, they said the Borg had sent a transmission.
Yes.
And that it'll take 180 years or something to get there. Which that my years off. But the point was, it aligned with the appearance of the Borg in Next Generation.
Yeah.
Timeline wise. So they put a pin in it, say, well, this was the start. It wasn't necessarily Q that introduced humanity to the Borg. They were coming anyways. Because it's a force of nature that called out. Right. So putting that signal at the end saying, well, the signal went through. Well, I feel like we might have started problems in years to come. Kind of the same thing with Pike at the end of this episode when he said, I feel like we've just kind of pushed it aside and we are creating a problem that someone else is going to have to deal with, years down the road. Yeah, because essentially the idea is the Gorn go into hibernation. We don't know for how long. Yeah. They could go into hibernation for maybe a couple of years, maybe a couple of thousand years. Maybe tomorrow, David. Maybe tomorrow. As soon as the sun starts to eject its cores or whatever it was. That's right. We're all fucked. Yeah. And I was like going, that is actually a creative way of doing something like this now. I really enjoyed what they did with the Gorn. They're trying to make these beings not so human-like, right? Like a lot of the alien species in Star Trek, but I think where they fail in that and maybe they might have had more foresight in that regard or in this regard, they're still in spaceships.
Yeah.
They still have space suits. They know what they're doing. They're not just a shark swimming in the water. Oh, I think you're a fish. I'm going to bite you. They still have some type of malicious intent.
Yes.
What that intent is, I don't know. Maybe they don't even view us as anything other than food. Maybe that's the moral chasm. You know, the fact that they don't even look at us as anything other than food.
Yeah, they see us as cattle.
And if that's the case, then I'm okay with that. That's the only thing I got to say about that entire issue and this reframing of the Gorn as essentially a non-anthropomorphic other is that, well, they're also in spacesuits. And they seem to be aware of human movement, human weaponry, human space systems. They have an actual console inside of the digestive chamber.
Oh, man, that was still...
Yeah. So there are some things that could be smoothed out down the road, but ultimately I'm pretty happy with what they did with the Gorn, and I'm hoping at this point they're putting them away. Like, if this is what you're doing, you so neatly wrapped it all up, we don't really need to go back. We can start moving forward into new territories now. Do you agree, or would you like to see the Gorn again?
I would like to see the Gorn in a different series.
That same.
Because...
And something that takes place hundreds of years later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like then you can actually kind of build on that threat of the Gorn, because like, oh, the crew of the Enterprise had to deal with this. Let's have a different crew deal with it. And that's a better way of actually bringing in like these Universal or Star Trek main threats.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that was the problem I always had with the Borg down the line was like, well, they always showed up in TNG. Then they showed up in Voyager. Then they showed up.
I think the reason why I used to feel, I do feel same as you. They overused them.
They overused them.
I think with Voyager, after rewatching all 7 seasons twice in the last 4 years, they did a lot of different things with it. And I'm not talking about introducing new concepts and ideas. They made it less of a cosmic threat and more of an intimate threat.
Intimate threat, yeah. Because they introduced a character like 7 of 9.
Yeah.
And it the only reason why I say it worked in Voyager was because of that.
Correct.
But in doing so, you kind of took away that threat quality, because you have to create this character like 7 of 9 that is going to show us that the Borg are not as evil as we all been thinking this all these years.
Right.
I mean, even in DS9, the Borg are seen as were used as a major threat. I mean, the whole reason why DS9 started in the very beginning was because of, I think it's Wolf 359, where Cisco, that's where he first started.
I think when you're looking to flesh things out like the Borg, and even with the Gorn, they didn't do this. And this is the only reason why I'm even talking about this currently as just a contrastive aspect. With Voyager, whether you view it good or bad, what they did with the Borg, ultimately, David, I do agree with you. It worked in Voyager, but it didn't work for the Borg overall, because they did remove the teeth. Mm-hmm. They removed the fangs from the villain, because early on, how Next Generation utilized it, as well as First Contact, there was no moral quandary with the Borg. They were bad. Let's get rid of them. They want to kill and assimilate humanity and seemingly every organic life they can get their little nano probes on. In Voyager, they started posing different questions. Well, these are sentient beings that are trapped, essentially.
Yeah.
They're trapped in a collective mind. So when we start to view them as that now, we sympathize with the Borg because they're simply trapped cognitively. They're no longer scary.
Exactly.
So see, that's the problem. You want to flesh something out, make it more interesting in terms of story. It works, but you run the risk of removing those fangs. And that's one reason why, bringing it back to Strange New Worlds, I am glad, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they are now setting aside the Gorn. They've dealt with them now for 3 seasons.
Yes.
We can move on. and let's not run the risk of defanging them.
Exactly. And because like, don't keep going back to the same well, because you're going to run out of water soon enough. And there's a lot of other things they could be doing in Strange New Worlds than just focusing constantly on the Gorn.
All right, I want to talk about Anson Mount, because I will say between Hegemony Part 1 and Hegemony Part 2, we have been gifted some of our best Pike scenes.
Yes.
And it's all because of Anson Mount's just wide range in terms of acting. If you go back, if you didn't notice this, go back and rewatch the opening 15 minutes. Pike goes through at least a half a dozen different emotions.
Yes. Yeah.
Anger, frustration, fear, sadness. It's like, Jesus, dude. And you're just fucking going back and forth on those different emotions. He doesn't get enough credit as an actor. And I will stand by this. Anson Mount is, this is not to say anything about the rest of the cast. Anson Mount is the fucking top talent in that cast.
Oh no, I will say hands down after this episode, Anson Mount has by far made Captain Pike his character.
Yeah.
That is him.
He is Captain Pike.
He is Captain Pike at this point, because like the fact that last season, everyone's main gripe about last season was, where's Pike? Where's Anson? And he missed out on like half of the season. But like when you get to Hegemony Part 1 and Part 2, you see why a actor like Anson Mount is so important to this cast.
They really lucked out. And for those people who always shit on Discovery, at least you can say Discovery gave us
Anson
Pike.
Mount.
Anson Mount's Pike. You can't hate on Discovery when you see what at least spawned off, what it gave us ultimately.
Well, think about it too. I mean, Strange New Worlds and Discovery gave us a story that we all knew as Star Trek fans. We all knew the story of Captain Pike. We knew of it. We knew of it.
Yeah.
But we never really knew the full details. And the fact that basically
we knew his end.
We knew his end.
Essentially, his fate.
And that was the one thing I always said is like, why do we need to see this character if we know his fate? His fate is in that chair. But I will be honest, because like of how good they've written his story and how good Anson Mount has played Captain Pike, I'm like on pins and needles every single time now I see Captain Pike, because it's kind of like, yeah, we know what his end game is, but now we're seeing the journey that it takes to get there.
Yeah. I also really like his characterization because he is very different. And you could see that from the very beginning in the first season. Not so much in Discovery. I think they were still trying to figure it out, like who he really is, like how they're going to have his characterization. How are we going to figure this guy out? And over the last several years, they've really fleshed it out to where we pretty much understand that this is a guy, he's very different than all our other captains.
By far.
It's like he is not afraid of leaning on other people's strengths.
He's not afraid to actually treating his crew as his equals.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like he looks at Una and doesn't see Una as his number one. It's Una.
He has a very different type of relationship with his crew than many of the other captains. And one thing that I find a bit endearing, just from a story perspective, is he is serious when he needs to be serious. So he's not a slapstick captain. But then also he is the most lighthearted at times captain we've had. He's not afraid of being just not funny, silly.
Yeah.
Like, he acts a lot like we do at times. Like there will be a serious situation. He takes care of that serious situation. And then he'll
have this look.
He'll have a moment where he is being silly. Like when he told Batel that he was a choir boy or an altar boy. I love it. I really do enjoy what they've done with him, giving him a lighter side, which says a lot about him as a person. And that's where I was trying to get to. This is a man who knows his fate.
Yeah.
His fate is dark. He knows how it's going to end. And yet, despite that, it's Sisyphusian, I guess you would call it. let me change that a little bit. It's more Albert Camus' rendition of the myth of Sisyphus, meaning the philosopher from France, the existentialist philosopher. He had written an essay called The Myth of Sisyphus, and it was about the idea of holding on to your happiness, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of the intricacies. It's very nuanced, but the idea is you laugh and you smile in the face of adversity, and rather than throwing your hands up in the air and complaining that you're pushing this giant rock up the hill, and once you get it to the top of the hill, it's just going to roll back down, and you have to push that rock right back up to the top again. And you do this day in, day out. That was Sisyphus's curse to do that. But Albert Camus contextualized it a little differently when he was writing about it. He was trying to show people a type of existential freedom. Laugh, smile, embrace it. Don't just look at this as something that you have to do, as a curse. Look at it as something that you can take pride in and honor. And it's basically the idea of changing your perspective. Change your perspective and turn negatives into positives. And that's really what Pike's character seems to be, or I should say the writer seem to be doing with Pike's characterization. This is a guy who knows his fate, and yet he still smiles. He still maintains optimism.
Well, that's the thing about that. This character that I've been really, really liking for the past couple seasons is the fact that Pike almost has like this stoic philosophy in his brain where he just, there's something about it where it's like, just like what you said, that the philosopher, the myth of Sisyphus, a lot of stoic philosophy is based on that, where it's you have to take the negatives and embrace them, but turn them into positives.
You're absolutely right. Existentialism and stoicism, they absolutely share some of those similarities there. Yeah.
And it's like, that's one of the things that I really get attached to when it comes to the character of Pike now, because none of the other characters in Star Trek, like the other captains, really have embraced this. I mean, the closest one you could probably say is Kirk, because Kirk is the person that always, no matter what the odds, he's going to do what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. But there's something about how I look at Kirk and I look at Pike, and Pike gets it. I think truly Pike understands about where he is as a person. Kirk never really understands where he is.
No, Kirk and Spock are two different people. Not just in terms of story, just in almost every way. Is like, I guess what I was trying to say is Pike reflects Camus' existential courage. So Pike is burdened with not just potential, he literally with the foreknowledge of his own tragic fate. Yet rather than succumb to despair, Pike continues to lead, to protect his crew, and to love, as if the weight of all of this inevitability could be defied through meaningful action in the present.
Yeah.
He is truly what I would call absurdist hero, which is, absurdism is just what Camus calls his existentialism. It's absurdism.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is really cool, because like, I don't think any of the other captains being put in the position that Pike's in would have. I'm gonna say that basically none of them probably could survive like Pike.
Kirk's story, or Kirk's entire person, meaning who he is, would never work in a story like this.
No,
because
he'd break.
He would find a way to defy his fate. That's who he is. He throws the middle finger to fate and says, fuck it all. I'm going to twist and turn this cosmological force to benefit me and what I want.
And Picard would probably just internalize it. because, and we've seen it in the season of Picard. He's the type of person that doesn't, embrace the negative. He lets it burn him inside because he lets his trauma literally eternalize it, and then he pushes everyone else away.
He's a Shakespearean character at times.
Yeah.
Picard. We should do a show, David, where we break down in terms of literary influences each of the captains, because all of them are influenced by some form of literature.
Because and then you go to Janeway. Janeway is probably, I don't think Janeway would ever survive, because she would do what Kirk would have done, try to defy the odds.
We've seen her.
We've seen her do it.
That's how her show ended.
And then we know that Archer can't do it. And let's not kid ourselves. Archer would be done.
Oh.
But the only one that I would say maybe has a shot to actually do it is probably Sisko. Because Sisko's the type of person that basically, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, he'll accept his fate.
Yeah, because he's very different too. His story is mixed with all type of mysticism and prophecy.
But there's a heart to it too.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying he's on a whole other level. A whole other level.
I'm sorry. I just finished watching another DS9 route, and I got to the episode where Jacob actually lives through his life trying to save his dad. Dear God, Sisko is just awesome in the very end. When he sees his son sacrifice himself just to save him, and he has to carry that. I'm going, that has to hurt. And that's what I mean. Sisko is probably the closest one that could probably deal with what Pike's going through.
Yeah. It was a strong episode. The visuals were just very gorgeously executed. Just even how the episode started, David. The episode begins with that 360-degree camera rotation that transitions us into the bridge of the Enterprise. So you have this rotating visual rhythm that not only introduces us to the crisis at hand, but it also echoes the very movement of the Gorn hunter vessels. So the visual parallel is subtle but effective, using the formal design to suggest the thematic mirroring between predator and prey, chaos and command. So even visually, this was very top-notch work. The visual world building, as we mentioned a few moments ago, the Gorn ship design, stunning art design, Dave.
Yeah.
Just stunning work.
Well, think about this too, Mike. I mean, the one thing me and you have really harped at our listeners and told them why this era of Star Trek's so good is the visuals, especially the camera work. The camera work,
except for Picard season 1, but
except for Picard, that is true. But with the camera work, even from Discovery to Strange New Worlds, even to Picard season 3, when they decide to get off the. They decide to get up and actually do something.
Yeah, it's more cinematic. They're definitely leaning into visual metaphor, which is why cinema in general is so much stronger at times than television, or at least television of years past. Modern television, because of the advent of streaming and premium channels, they have gravitated to the same type of cinematic metaphors and allegories, visually speaking. So, of course, Star Trek is going to lean into that because it's just the nature of the content currently and of the mode of distribution via streaming.
And I honestly think it's a lost art nowadays, because even if you see a lot of other shows, and
you mean effective? It's a lost art in terms of being effective.
Yeah, it's a lost art of being executed and done effectively, because people just think, oh, I'll just take this nice angle of the scene and not think about what is my scene actually saying.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that you and I and Thomas talk a lot about on our movie podcast, Critique Revolve. It seems like there's a lot of people who will do certain things, meditative filmmaking, slow camera movements. They allow cameras to sit a long time on characters. There's a lot of moody atmospheric building, but it really doesn't mean anything. When you start to dig deep into what the visuals are saying, they're just doing things that they think look cool, but there really isn't anything thematically there. They're not strengthening the narrative through visuals. Whereas with Star Trek, even Star Trek Discovery, everything in this era, just to back you up, David, the Kurtzman era of Star Trek, their visuals matter. It's not just spectacle.
Yeah.
A lot of it leans into the narrative itself. It's helping say something about your story. And really, that's what it should do. Visuals should not be detached in terms of meaning. The visuals should enhance the meaning. That's what it's supposed to do. And that's a complaint I've never had about modern Star Trek, because those, except for the inadequate visuals in Picard's first season. So ultimately, I enjoyed the season opener quite a bit. It was a great way to wrap up the two-parter and also get us thrown right into the mix in season 3. It does seem strange that it's been 2 years. I didn't realize it's been that long since the season 2 premiere.
Same.
But when I started seeing some of the actors, they did noticeably age. You can tell. Not in a bad way, but hey, 2 years.
2 years.
People age.
People age. You know, it's Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, but the good thing is, though, I like the fact that it seems like the production team on Strange New Worlds are on their A game with it.
Yes.
Particularly with Strange New Worlds.
There is no quality issues.
Yeah, because
really
they're always trying to make sure everything has its purpose and there's a constant consistency.
Yeah. Yep. So Dave, I'm going to give this episode an 89%. It's a strong start. What about you?
I actually have the same score as you. I have an 89 for this. It's a strong start. The only thing is like, at the end of the day, this episode needs the first part to really be taken as a whole. It can't be, it's not an episode you can just simply watch by itself. You have to actually have part 1 to actually go along with part 2.
Well, yeah, and if someone sees that it says Hegemony 2 and they're like, well, where's the first part? And you don't go look for it and you have no idea what's going on. Well, who's the real jackass? All right, David, this ends our discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.
I couldn't help but notice your pain.
My pain.
It runs deep. Share it with me.
End simulation.